Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks, and welcome to our weekly webinar series of Masterclass. In today's segment, we'll be talking about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin's price action. As always, let me just ask you guys a very quick question in relation to Bitcoin. And before we do that, however, it is important to know that if you guys can hear me and if you guys can see my screen and if you guys can hear me very well as well, please do give me a check by saying yes or no so that we know that everything is great. Okay, wonderful. Great to know that. Thank you for that confirmation. As always, it's a pleasure to see a lot of familiar names in this session because that kind of provides that assurance that, look, everyone is very much focused to learn more and more on a on a daily basis. Just a big headline just came out, so let me just read out that headline. It's about Citigroup and their earnings. So Citigroup's second quarter fixed income sale and trading revenue came in at 3.21 billion, which is less than the estimate of 3.64 billion. So that pretty much tells us the entire story of Citibank. Certainly, this is not a great number because, as you know, many of you probably know that earnings season kicked in yesterday. And today we are getting a lot of new earnings from various different investment banks out of the United States. So that was a Citibank's earning, just as a sort of a breaking news to you. But of course, today's focus is very much on Bitcoin and the potential investment opportunities in terms of Bitcoin and where prices can really be heading. So we'll be talking about a lot more in terms of a technical analysis as well. Before I do that, let me just go through this brief disclaimer. So anything which will be discussed cannot be perceived as an advice. The full disclaimer is right in front of you. Our contact details are as follows. Twitter handle is right there in front of you. YouTube, AvaTrade, daily fundamental videos and technical analysis videos. These are the two different sort of videos that we produce on a daily basis. Plus, the recording of this webinar will also be available after this. And you can watch that recording of this webinar on our website. Now, what is our agenda for today? So obviously we'll be talking about the main study question, which is what is Bitcoin? So why don't some of you guys try to take a stab on that particular question, try to answer that question, that what is Bitcoin and what does it really mean? So if you can try to answer that question. And then the second question following that, in the meantime, while we wait for the answer for people to give us an answer that what is Bitcoin, is it a safe haven? Can we really replace this one with gold? So what are your views? So people are saying that Bitcoin is a digital form of a payment, it's a digital currency. So that is excellent. That is exactly what it is. And speaking of digital currencies, today we do have a major breaking news out of the ECB, where, on our Twitter account, we've talked about that the ECB is also going to bring its own digital currency, meaning the digital version of euro. We already are using that digital version of euro in a larger extent anyway, because no one is really using the paper form nowadays. Everyone is using cards and sort of a digital form of that money. So anyways, the ECB is going to further its investigation phase of digital euro. So that was kind of a breaking news that I kind of wanted to share with you. Now, the other aspect of this particular question is it a safe haven? A safe haven is an asset which, gold is considered as safe haven. Why? Because in a time of risk, in a time of uncertainty, we always see people, going towards gold, going towards that safe haven asset, really trying to find an opportunity to find that safety. But more recently, what we have also seen is Bitcoin. Bitcoin people have started to look towards Bitcoin at the same time as well, as a safe haven asset. They believe that Bitcoin could also be a safe haven asset. So both gold and Bitcoin are considered as very much of a safe haven assets if with that respect. Now, what is moving Bitcoin prices? Of course, we'll be discussing that in a lot more detail. Is the supply really limited? What do you guys think? Do you think that the supply is really limited in terms of a Bitcoin, or is this is something like fiat currency, like a dollar, like the euro, or wherever you guys are based, like where there is no limit to any supply, you can just continue to print as much as you want. What do you guys think? Limited supply, exactly. That is perfect answer, Fatima. Thank you for answering that question. So, of course, because Bitcoin cannot be, unlimitedly printed. So there's only a limited supply of 21 million of Bitcoin, and after that, there'll be no more Bitcoins left to mine or anything. So that's really the supply question is. Now, in terms of demand, how big is that demand? This particular question is quite very interesting, because the reason that I'm saying is that so far we have mainly talked about retail investors sort of talking about buying Bitcoin, but now that equation has certainly changed in this year or in the last year or so, because now we have institutional investors very much getting involved. Yesterday, Capital Growth Group, one of the largest investment company in the United States, they bought a large number of shares of a company called MicroStrategy, which directly buys Bitcoin. They recently sold their debt to buy more Bitcoin as well. Now we have these companies buying shares of MicroStrategy, so really kind of providing them the backdoor access to Bitcoin. And so, that kind of answers that question, that how big is the demand? The demand is certainly very, very huge, because more and more companies are coming, institutions are coming to buy Bitcoin. So there's a very, very strong demand out there. Now, the next one is, of course, defining the levels. We will go on to MT4 platform, and we will discuss everything from that perspective, from long-term price perspective, from a short-term price perspective. So we will look at weekly, daily, and intraday charts, and then see where the opportunities are for both passive investors and for active investors at the same time as well. And what other coins are there? So this is something else that we will be also talking about, because of course, when it comes to other coins, we have many of them in the market, but one of them that we would be talking about certainly could be Ethereum. Because Ethereum is the next strong profile. It has a very, very strong profile. So we'll be certainly looking at Ethereum's price action at the same time as well, while we focus on Bitcoin. So that kind of gives you an extra sort of bonus on that. One particular thing that I do kind of also wanted to discuss with you guys before I kind of jump onto the MT4 platform is AvaTrade's unique technology, this AvaProtect. If you guys haven't used it, highly recommend you to do that, because AvaProtect is a revolutionary one-click risk management tool available on the AvaTrade web trader and AvaTrade Go app. With AvaProtect, you can purchase protection against loss for defined period after opening a position. If the protection ends, you can have an open position that is losing. AvaTrade will reimburse the loss directly into your trading account. The only cost is the AvaProtect fee itself. So that is just something as a sort of a bonus for you guys that I kind of wanted to bring that to your attention. Now let's have a look at the MT4 platform, and I am sure all of you guys are very much aware of the MT4 platform. Now, first of all, what we will really look at is ignore all the lines right here and then just pay attention to the price action on the monthly time frame, on the monthly chart. So we can see that the rally in Bitcoin really sort of started in September last year. We started to see those smaller moves, and then those smaller moves started to become big, and then they became bigger. Then we had this month of January where the prices went all the way to 58,000, to the high of that. But then, we closed in around that 46,000 price level. When at the start of the month, we started at 33,000. And this was kind of a confirmation to us, an early signal that the price, is kind of losing its momentum. We had that sort of over here as well. But the momentum obviously continued, and in this particular month, we saw further gains for Bitcoin. And afterwards, we had this particular month, which retested the lows of 46,000 and then made an all-time high for Bitcoin in around that 65,000 price level. And the following months, the moment that we crossed below the lows of the last month, it was clear that the price is going down. So the price did go down. And in the following months, we not only opened lower with respect to the previous month, and we had a lower high as well in comparison to the previous month, but we also posted a lower low in comparison to the previous month. So it was a clear indication to us that the prices are more likely to bounce to the downside from here. Now, for this particular month of July, what we are really seeing now is a price action which has started to slow its downward journey, meaning we are within the range of last month of 28,000 to the downside and the upside of 41,000. Now the prices has started, that massive drop in terms of a momentum that we have seen in the previous months, that has certainly weakened quite a lot. So now the question really is that which way we are going to move. And the answer to that one is really going to be coming by looking at the previous month's price action. And that is whether we are going to break above the highs or whether we're going to break below the lows of last month. Because if we do, then certainly what we would be very much focused on from there onwards would be that, okay, where is the next low that we could be focusing on? And in terms of that, what we'll be really looking at is going to be the low of the previous month. So really this particular low, this one is the one that we'll be very much focused on, or even below that, so the low of the previous month, so the low of this particular month, that 17,000 sort of a price level is where we will be very much focusing on the monthly time frame. But for now, what we are very much focused on is the last month's lows and highs. Does that make any sense? Do you guys have any questions on that? You guys have any questions, please ask me. Because it is important that you guys understand the concept of lows that we've discussed in relation to the previous month, because that is very, very important. Okay. All right. So the people are saying that they are very good with the explanation. So obviously that's a very good indication that you guys are understanding it. Now, the same concept we're going to apply in terms of the weekly chart. So in the weekly chart, again, when the monthly chart showed us that the prices are started to move higher and higher, and then we had the first retracement and we have another massive, massive retracement. Now, in terms of a weekly time frame, what we are also focusing on is really not only the last few weeks, but we are looking at more of the overall range. So we focus on the high of this particular candle and the low of this candle. So initially on the weekly chart, we have some sort of a bullish signal coming, but that bullish signal is not strong enough. So let me explain to you why that bullish signal is not strong enough and why there are chances that the price may move further to the downside. So the explanation to that comes from these three different moving averages, which you may be wondering for the time being that what are these moving averages. So this in pink is your 50-week moving average, then your 100, and then finally your 200-week moving average. The concept is that as long as the price continues to trade above them, we have, prices are likely to move to the upside. If price begins to break below that, then it means that price bulls are losing control. The longer the price touches the 50-day simple 50-week moving average, the stronger the chances are that it is going to violate that moving average to the downside. So you can see that the price started to come close to its moving average in around this particular price action, and all of these lows right over here, they were relatively close to the moving average. And then there was a confirmation that the price is going to retest the moving average, which it did, the 50-week over here. And then following that, we did see a slightly bit bounce. But then the next week, the price failed to break above the highs of the previous weeks, and it formed a lower low. So it was a confirmation to us that the price is moving to the downside. This particular week, we are seeing the same continuation of the trend, a lower low, lower high, and a lower low as well. And of course, the touch of that 50-week moving average. Now, in terms of a potential trade for those investors and traders who are like to, take the advantage of the situation, what they can do really is, if they wanted to go long, is they can either potentially place their stop loss below the low of this week's low, so the low of this one, and then let the price continue to move higher. Or what they could do is they could put the stop loss below the low of this week, of this particular week. And they can enter that long position, because if they are taken out, we know that we are moving to the downside of that particular one. So this would be very sort of aggressive strategy on the other side. Or on the other side, put your stop loss on the lows of this particular candle, and then wait for the price to move to the upside, and then to the upside from there onwards. So that's what we would be very much looking to do that. But on the opposite side, if the price breaks below the 50-week moving average, then what you could do is you could put the stop loss on the highs of this particular week, and then target the price to move to the downside, and that downward move could potentially be right around in these particular price level, or even the low of this candle, which is right sort of over here. So that 25,000 sort of a level of this particular candle. So that is what we would be placing. So you would still have a pretty decent, prices trading at 32,338. So it's very close to break below that, 50-week moving average. So your risk right now is this much, but your reward on the other side is right over here. So it is more or less 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio, which is not really that great, but that potential opportunity is there in terms of the price action. So that is something that we'll be very much focusing on in terms of a weekly time frame. I think by looking at the weekly time frame, once again to summarize, the price does look a bit more bearish. The price does seem like that it is going to move to the downside. So that is from a passive investor, from the longer term time frame perspective. Now, on the short term time frame perspective, such as the daily and the 4-hour time frame, where we will park our conversation for today, really is that price is trading very, very close towards its 50-day simple moving average. So the opportunity on the long side is only going to be coming if the price breaks above the 50-day simple moving average, meaning above that 34,000 sort of a price level. And then the nearest lower low, it could be your stop level. So right now, the low of today's low could be your stop level. But if it continues to move lower to the downside, and then it comes to the upside, then it retraces, and then it takes out the 50-day simple moving average, your lower your closest low is going to be this particular one. So just before the price tested it and then moved back, and then it took off to the upside. So that would be the nearest lowest low is going to be your stop loss in under those circumstances. Now, overall, the price does look still bearish because we have the 100-day simple moving average crossing below the 200-day simple moving average, but this is kind of positive. Why? Because now the 100-day simple moving average is going to get closer towards its 50-day simple moving average. That would be an opportunity that the 50-day will eventually be able to cross above this 50-day simple moving average, be able to cross above once it grows down to above to the 100-day simple moving average, which would be a very positive signal or a bullish signal. But the first bullish signal is going to be coming when the price is going to cross above the 50-day simple moving average, which is trading in around that particular price action. Of course, if that doesn't happen, that is fine. You can put your stop loss above the 50-day simple moving average, and you can continue to target the price to move to the downside. And the nearest target right now in terms of the price action, really our support zone is right over here, but the important support zone could be just over here. So I think that is the support zone that I'll be very much looking at. So really, I'm going to change the color of these ones now to green because now we are representing our support zone with both lines. So I like to show my support zones in green. So now what I am really looking at in terms of this particular price action is that if it doesn't move above, we are short. So this is our target. So our risk over here is this much, and our reward over here is this much. That is our reward, and this is our risk. Okay, so we have nearly 1.5 sort of a price to risk to reward ratio in terms of that. Does that sort of make sense to you guys? Okay, I have a question. Some people are asking, what about this situation as I see 100 and 200 MA is under the candle? Andres, I'm not sure what you mean. So could you please elaborate on that? Okay, great question. Should we monitor RSI? Yes, we should monitor RSI. So in our daily analysis in the morning, we talked about the RSI sort of a price levels as well. So RSI has stopped taking out the previous highs. Now we are seeing a consistent downward momentum in terms of RSI. So will it stay above the lows of this particular one or not? Because if the price moves lower, RSI doesn't move lower, then that means we could still see momentum to the upside. But if the RSI also breaks below this particular low, then this means this price action is going to gain more attraction. So that possible potential short trade can really work out quite well under those circumstances for you guys. But when we focus on the RSI, on the weekly or especially on the monthly time frame, over there the RSI is telling us very different story. So you can see the RSI on a monthly is still very much overbought, and it tends to remain overbought. The RSI doesn't really work on the monthly time frame, but on the weekly time frame it does work quite well, because you can see that every time it is kind of oversold, which was over here, we did see a pretty good decent rally, and then after that we had another oversold sort of a reading. So really we are talking about this particular low over here for in terms of a price action, and we'd like to see if the price can stay above this or not, above the lows of that one. Again, the concept is going to be the same. If the price is moving lower but the RSI stops moving lower, then that means the price action is more likely to move to the upside. But overall, guys, I think there are chances that price can move up. But looking at the price action, given the fact that the 50-day simple moving average has been tested in this particular zone quite a lot, the chances are we are going to break to the downside and come into this particular area of support, or at least test the lows of this particular candle. That 28,000 price handle is highly likely to be tested in the coming days. Marija, does that answer your question about the RSI that you were asking me? Okay, great. Andres, if you could just pose me your question again, what do you mean by, which time frame are you looking at, the 100 and 200 AMA? So I can look at that. So for everyone else, are you guys 100% clear in terms of the potential opportunities that we have sort of highlighted in this particular webinar series? Okay, so Marisa asked me a very good question, and the question is, are technicals or fundamental indicators more important? When it comes to Bitcoin, I think fundamentals are more important than technicals. And with respect to fundamentals, it is really about, are institutions buying? Are institutions really doing something in relation to that or not? Are we going to see more institutions going into this or not in Bitcoin? Because if they do, then it is certainly positive. Does that make sense? Yeah, exactly. So, and with respect to technical analysis, I think price action, the price levels are very important, so such as 30,000, 25,000. Followed by that is 20,000, 17,000. The weekly lows, the weekly highs, the monthly lows, the monthly highs, exactly the way that we have done the analysis. I think in this particular webinar, we have really unearthed some great material which would be well worth for you guys to go and revisit once again in that to have a look at it, because we did really kind of go into a bigger term time frame, the monthly time frame we talked about in the weekly time frame, and then we also talked about the daily time frame as well. Now, as an additional bonus, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly look at the 4-hour time frame and then see when are we going to see any bullish signals coming. So when we go into the 4-hour time frame, one thing becomes very, very clear, and that is that the price for the last, since the 18th of June, is doing nothing, but it is just consolidating in the sideways pattern. So this is the top, and this over here, the candle over here, is the low. And as long as the price continues to trade in between them, we don't have any trend really emerging. And when in the sideways trends, these moving averages have no meaning at all. So what we're really waiting over here is at least the price, let the price to come back above that 50-day simple moving average. But right now, it seems like the bulls are complete control of the price. And okay, so in terms of that, so what we're really seeing is, so basically Stephen Mnuchin just came out with some headlines and I was reading that. So this is quite an interesting one. So Stephen Mnuchin, the ex-US Treasury Secretary, he's saying that gold is not really a good asset. Mnuchin also said that if he had to hold, he will hold, gold than Bitcoin. Again, something, like these people, they've always been saying things against Bitcoin, but eventually they kind of come to the point, to the understanding of how important Bitcoin really is, and then why they should really respect the value of Bitcoin, the potential of Bitcoin, and where it is today. So, I mean, for disclaimer purposes, I'm a big time bull when it comes to that, to Bitcoin, and I'm still holding large amount of Bitcoins in my portfolios. So I think Bitcoin can easily touch 100,000 without any problem in the next bull run, whenever that will be. All right, guys. So on the 4-hour time frame, once again, we're really looking at that particular option. So if the price crosses above the 50-day simple moving average, we will see an upward signal coming up very, very soon in that. Otherwise, we are likely to move to the downside, because that is where the most of the focus really is. So I hope that this particular webinar was quite useful for you guys. and you've learned a lot in terms of fundamentals and technicals that we've kind of discussed. We will continue these series, and then in the next one we will come and revise our price levels. We will see that where the price has gone from there onwards since we last talked about it, and how the price action has performed ever since then. I'm sorry we haven't been able to cover any other points because this has just taken too much of our time, but next time we will definitely cover them. That's all for now. See you guys next time.